Every morning, Professor Elias Thorne carried out an unshakable ritual, stroking his golden retriever, Leo, twice before boarding the train. But on the fateful morning of May 2014, Leo's composure shattered. The dog began whining incessantly gently, clamping his mouth around his owner's wrist, desperately resisting the journey like a hopeless prophecy. Elias, rushing to catch his usual train, gently pulled his hand free. Completely unaware, he was dismissing the last warning he would ever receive. That afternoon, the customary 5 o'clock train arrived at Portland Union Station. Hundreds of people poured out, yet Leo, who had waited patiently for years, never saw his owner's familiar silhouette again. What happened to Professor Thorne, and what compelled Leo to stubbornly uphold his silent promise at the station for an entire decade? Please support us by subscribing to the channel to follow the full story of this silent loyalty. And don't miss the newest video that just appeared on your screen about the infinite power of enduring love. Professor Elias Thorne was 45 years old, a scholar whose days were meticulously structured around ancient Greek texts and the quiet grandeur of his older Portland home. He taught classics at the local university, finding comfort in the silence of history that the present world often lacked. Intellectual, kind, and inherently solitary, Elias had long since accepted the quiet rhythm of his life, a rhythm that contained no unexpected notes or emotional crescendos. The air outside his window on this specific evening, December 24, 2012, was crisp and scented with pine and rain. It was Christmas Eve, and the festive cheer of Portland was visible in the glittering window displays, a stark contrast to the muted lamplight illuminating his study. He put on his coat, needing a brief escape from the silence, and headed out toward the smaller neighborhood park, a habit whenever the pressure of historical perspective became too heavy. It was there, huddled near a defunct fountain whose granite basin was dusted with light snow, that Elias first saw him. The dog was a golden retriever, but the rich golden fur was matted and stained, and his body was skeletal. The dog was clearly a stray, deeply emaciated, yet when he lifted his head to meet Elias's gaze, there was an unmistakable depth of intelligence in his dark eyes, mixed with a profound, weary sadness. He didn't move or whine. He merely looked a quiet plea in his stillness. Elias, without a moment of hesitation or concern for the sudden disruption of his ordered life, knelt. He spoke softly, calling the dog gently. It took several minutes of patient, low encouragement before the golden weakly managed to rise and lean against Elias's outstretched hand. He felt the sharp angles of the dog's ribs beneath the matted fur. Elias carefully helped the weary animal up and guided him home. He named him Leo, meaning lion, a tribute to the quiet courage Elias saw in the dog's weary posture. That night, Leo devoured the warm food Elias prepared and settled by the fireplace. Their first Christmas was spent in quiet companionship, Elias reading Leo, sleeping soundly, occasionally letting out a deep sigh of relief. For the first time since he moved into the house many years before, Elias felt a tangible warmth that transcended the simple heat of the fireplace. He felt anchored. As the new year of 2013 began, Elias returned to his academic routine. Every morning he had to take the light rail into the city center, a journey that started at a small neighborhood stop and involved transferring to the longer train at Portland Union Station. This grand, echoing hub of rail travel quickly became the stage for their burgeoning ritual. Leo, driven by an instinct Elias didn't fully comprehend, would follow him to the initial light rail stop, waiting patiently until Elias boarded. But soon, the ritual intensified. Leo would insist on walking all the way to Portland Union Station, a far longer distance. He would wait outside the glass doors of the terminal, watching Elias purchase his ticket. Leo never tried to follow Elias onto the platform itself, but remained poised at a familiar stone ledge near the entry gates, his body radiating quiet focus. It was their new solemn pact. Elias had to leave every day, but Leo would always be there when he came back, The daily commute to Portland Union Station quickly solidified into a sacred, silent contract between Elias and Leo. It wasn't just a routine, it was the framework of their shared existence. Every morning as Elias reached the worn marble flooring leading to the ticket barrier, he would stop. Leo, sensing the imminent departure, would sit perfectly still, his eyes fixed on his master. This was the moment of their farewell gesture. Elias would lean down his hand, seeking the soft, velvety fur of Leo's right ear. He would stroke the ear once, pause, and then stroke it again, a slow, deliberate movement exactly twice. This simple act was the anchor Leo clung to. It was the physical confirmation that the separation was temporary and that the contract remained valid. After the second stroke, Elias would straighten up and pass through the gate, not looking back, knowing that Leo would not move until he was fully out of sight. The true test of loyalty came in the afternoon. Elias typically returned on the 5 o'clock train. Leo would arrive at the station around 4:30, finding his spot on the familiar stone ledge near the entry. He became an invisible fixture of the commuting masses. While the humans were preoccupied with their phones and rushing steps, Leo remained focused. Leo's method of recognition was not visual, it was elemental. He filtered the cacophony of the train platform, the hiss of the air brakes, the clamor of wheels on the track, the murmur of hundreds of voices into a single crucial signal. Amidst the rush of commuters, he could isolate the subtle, crisp sound of Elias's custom-made leather shoes hitting the ground. More importantly, he recognized Elias's unique scent, a blend of old parchment, strong black coffee, and a distinct musky cologne that no other person carried. The moment that specific scent profile drifted toward him, Leo's posture would instantly shift from quiet watchfulness to excited anticipation. Over the years, the Portland community began to notice the unwavering golden presence. The station's coffee vendors and ticket agents knew his name. They were witnesses to the quiet miracle of his devotion. They were all witnesses during their second Christmas together in 2013. The air in the terminal was thick with holiday music and the clatter of travelers burdened with gifts. Lights twinkled along the ceiling beams. Despite the sensory overload, Leo sat in his spot completely impervious to the distractions. He was not interested in the festive cheer. His attention was reserved solely for the arrival of the afternoon train, highlighting the singular private warmth of his bond with Elias that needed no public celebration. The morning of Thursday, May 22, 2014 began like any other. Elias was scheduled to present a major paper at a downtown library that day. He bent down to perform the usual farewell gesture, but as his fingers brushed Leo's ear, the dog began to behave erratically. Leo let out a low, unsettling groan, a sound Elias had never heard before, and then desperately clamped his mouth gently around Elias's wrist, applying just enough pressure to halt his movement. He whined incessantly, pulling backward with surprising force, trying to physically stop Elias from leaving the gate. "What is it, old friend?" Elias murmured, stroking his head with a confused frown. He tried to reassure Leo, but the dog resisted with desperate determination. The train was due. Elias, running late, gently disentangled his hand. "I'll be back soon, Leo. You know the drill." He completed the final ear stroke, hurried through the gate, and was gone. Leo remained by the stone ledge, not in his usual state of patient watchfulness, but vibrating with deep, inexplicable anxiety, his eyes wide and fixed on the empty track. The 5 o'clock train arrived at Portland Union Station with its usual rush of steam and the metallic squeal of its brakes. But for the first time in 18 months, Elias Thorne was not on it. He had been in his element discussing a passage from Homer's Odyssey during a seminar downtown when a sudden crushing pain had seized him. Before the paramedics could reach him, the massive heart attack had claimed his life. Elias Thorne, the quiet, kind scholar, had stepped out of the rhythm of the world without a moment's notice. Leo, oblivious to the irreversible tragedy, was waiting. He sat patiently at the stone ledge, his ears twitching toward the platform entrance. As the flood of tired commuters poured out, Leo watched his gaze, searching for the familiar shape, the bespoke coat, the scholarly air. The flood subsided, the main surge passed, and the crowd thinned. Still, no Elias. Leo's initial patience began to fray, replaced by a deep, vibrating anxiety that mirrored the feeling he had experienced that morning. He rose his tail, dropping low, and slowly moved toward the main ticket barrier. He pushed his nose through the turnstile's gap, then pulled back confused. Driven by desperate instinct, Leo began to scour the area, relying entirely on his senses. He moved meticulously, sniffing intensely at the cold marble floor, the base of the pillars, and particularly the very spot where Elias performed the morning farewell. He was looking for that specific comforting combination of old parchment and musk. He found traces of other commuters, the sharp smell of rain on wool and the stale aroma of the station's cleaning fluids. But the unique scent of Elias was not there. The dog let out a soft, low moan, a sound of profound loss that seemed swallowed by the cavernous space of the station. He returned to the ledge, sat, and stared fixedly at the empty tracks, waiting for a delayed train that would never come. Later that evening, Elias's niece Sarah arrived with news of her uncle's death and the task of collecting his belongings, including Leo. Sarah was a kind, practical woman who adored her uncle and knew Leo well. She tried to coax the dog away, offering warm blankets and food, but Leo was immovable. He stayed at the station until the lights dimmed and the last evening trains departed, only allowing Sarah to lead him home out of temporary exhaustion in the pre-dawn hours. The next day, and the days that followed, Sarah tried everything to establish a new normal. She offered gourmet dog food and long walks in the green parks Leo used to enjoy with Elias. But Leo was inconsolable. He refused the food, merely nudging the bowl away with his nose. He would pace the house, constantly checking the front door, the study, and eventually retreating to a corner near the front window, his body trembling slightly. The distress reached a peak on the second afternoon. As 5 o'clock approached, Leo's anxiety was physical. He stood by the door, whimpering, scratching at the wood with frantic persistence. Sarah knelt, wrapping her arms around the struggling dog, trying to comfort him. She realized quickly that trying to keep him was causing him more pain than the separation itself. His will was absolute. "He needs to go back, doesn't he?" Sarah whispered, her voice thick with sorrow, accepting the reality that Leo's loyalty superseded the comfort of a warm home. She drove him back to Union Station that evening. Leo bounded out of the car, ignoring Sarah, and headed straight for the stone ledge near the ticket barrier. He sat down facing the tracks, silent, focused, and visibly at peace for the first time since Elias's departure. Sarah understood then Leo was not a stray waiting for a handout. He was fulfilling a sacred promise. The grief that seized Leo in May of 2014 did not wane. It simply solidified into an act of profound, unwavering endurance. He became a creature of ritual, defined by the clock. For nearly a decade, the stone ledge at Portland Union Station was his altar. Time marched on, marked by the predictable steady downpour of the Oregon winter and the bright, brief bursts of summer sunshine. But Leo remained. The physical toll was undeniable. The passing years stole the luster from his once magnificent golden coat, replacing it with streaks of white around his muzzle and eyes. His movements slowed, his joints grew stiff, and the eager bounding of the young golden retriever was replaced by the careful, deliberate gait of old age. Yet every afternoon, as the hands of the station clock approached 4:30, the commitment that resided deep within him pulled him to his post. He endured numerous solitary Christmases at the station. The festive spirit of the city seemed to amplify his isolation. He would watch families hugging amidst piles of colorful luggage, children laughing as they rushed to meet arriving relatives. The air was filled with holiday carols, a stark contrast to the quiet focus of his perpetual vigil. He sat low to the ground, a faithful sentinel whose own joy had been packed away with the absent traveler. He was a silent, unmoving anchor in the tide of seasonal celebration, a testament to a promise that superseded all merriment. His survival was not an accident. It was a collective effort, a conspiracy of kindness, born of respect. The station staff and locals recognized that Leo was not merely a stray. He was fulfilling a purpose. They organized a system of secret support. Sarah Elias's niece regularly supplied high-quality food, leaving it with the security guard Mark. Mark, in turn, ensured Leo had fresh water and a dry, discreet shelter made of tarps and old crates, tucked away near the maintenance alley outside the main entrance. This careful arrangement helped Leo avoid intervention from animal control, which would have likely ended his long wait. Leo was only allowed to be visible on his ledge during the crucial afternoon commute, a tribute paid by the weary workforce. As the years blurred, 2016, 2019, 2022, Leo's presence transcended local oddity and began to inspire. A young reporter researching urban folklore heard the story from a ticket agent. Her article titled "The Ghost of Union Station" went viral. Leo quickly became a living legend and a symbol of unwavering loyalty. People began traveling to the station just to see him. They would leave small, respectful tributes, little piles of premium dog biscuits, fresh toys he mostly ignored, and handwritten notes addressed to Elias Thorne, telling the professor that his friend was still waiting. Leo accepted the kindness with quiet dignity, never shifting his focus from the empty tracks that symbolized his eternal unbroken vow. His story was no longer just about a man and a dog. It was about the simple, profound power of absolute devotion. 9 years had passed since Elias Thorne failed to step off the 5 o'clock train. It was now Christmas Eve, 2023. Leo, nearly 12 years old, was struggling against the heavy pull of time. His legs were brittle, his vision cloudy, and every breath was an effort. Earlier in the day, his caretaker, Mark the security guard, had gently tried to keep Leo warm in the maintenance alley. But as the familiar hour of the 5 o'clock train approached, an ancient, powerful urge overcame the dog's physical weakness. He pushed himself onto his trembling paws, ignoring the sharp pain that shot through his hips, and began the slow, arduous crawl toward the station entrance. The platform was bustling with last-minute travelers, the sound of carols echoing loudly, but Leo only had eyes for his accustomed stone ledge. He finally reached it, collapsing gently onto the cold stone, curled into a tight golden-white crescent, his gaze fixed on the tracks. His breathing was shallow, his heart beating a tired, muffled drum. He knew with the deep, quiet certainty of instinct that this was his last vigil. The 5 o'clock train arrived, brakes groaning a mournful song. The usual torrent of passengers flowed past, but this time, Leo did not even bother to lift his head. He was too weak to sort the individual footsteps, too tired to search for the familiar scent. He simply closed his eyes, surrendering to the overwhelming darkness. Then, in that silence, Leo felt it. It was not the sound of a train or the clamor of the crowd. It was a pervasive, unexplainable warmth that settled over him, melting the chill of the stone beneath his old bones. It was the sudden, unmistakable presence of Elias's familiar scent, not the faint trace on an old coat, but the fresh, strong aroma of old parchment and musk, exactly as it was 9 years ago. Leo's ear twitched. He felt a pressure light as air settle over his right ear. Once. Then a pause. Then the gentle, loving pressure came again exactly twice. It was the farewell gesture, only now it was a welcome. A deep, peaceful sigh escaped the old dog's body. He was no longer lying on cold marble. He was wrapped in the deepest, most unconditional love he had ever known. The waiting was over. The silent promise was finally fulfilled. Under the distant, glittering Christmas lights of the station, Leo's spirit lifted whole and young again, finally reunited with the scholar who had saved him. The news of the loyal dog's death spread through Portland and the country, marking the end of a beautiful era. The community led by Sarah and Mark raised funds instantly. A year later, on Christmas Eve, 2024, a life-sized bronze statue was unveiled at Portland Union Station. It depicted a strong, noble golden retriever sitting patiently on a stone ledge, his eyes perpetually fixed on the tracks. The plaque simply read, Elio, the promise at the platform. He waited here for 9 years. The statue stood as an eternal sentinel, commemorating the silent devotion of a dog and the profound meaning of that final sacred Christmas Eve reunion. And so Leo's vigil ended teaching us that true loyalty is not merely an action, but a timeless, quiet commitment that outlives physical presence. His story is a gentle reminder that the deepest forms of love require no words, only unwavering patience and sacrifice. If this quiet moment resonated with the promise in your own heart, please share your thoughts on Leo's beautiful sacrifice in the comments below, like this video, and join our channel by subscribing. And for another story that explores the lasting bonds of love, click on the new video appearing on your screen now.